action. Caroline and Maury, welcome to Real Talk by Girl Talk.
Yeah,
we have the infamous pizza girl here, DJ, model, musician, artist, creative, entrepreneur. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So really want to kind of just dive straight in.
Okay, let's do it.
I know we kind of were just, right? I mean, right before we had cameras rolling, we were talking about what it was like to grow up in LA.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how for you was like life growing up in LA and your story?
Yeah, and I think for like your area, like Calabasas, I don't think it really had that energy put onto it until the Kardashians kind of made it that thing that you had to be, you know, of this level of person to live there. I don't think that's really ever what Calabasas was like, right? But Malibu always had a little bit of that on it. Just the name Malibu, all the TV shows Malibu, you know, everybody automatically assumes that you're loaded if you live in Malibu. So that was definitely the impression that, you know, everybody had of me, which is not the case.
Were you the era of the Princes of Malibu when it was like Brody and Spencer and stuff?
Was I there?
Well, yeah, was that your era of like?
Yeah, that was my era, of course, yeah.
So that stigma of being in Malibu and your life kind of being there.
Yeah.
What was it like growing up in just, you know, those 26 miles?
You know, it was really weird. It was like a lot of kids with a lot of money and a lot of parents that were absent, so a lot of empty houses to party in and just be absolutely just, you know, it was debauchery, it was chaos, it was wild. I look back now, I'm like old now, and I look back at who I was in Malibu growing up, and like, it wasn't really right. Like, I'm definitely never gonna let my daughter be running around the way that I was, you know, at 14. The parties and the drugs and just everything was really on a whole nother level. I really do feel lucky to be alive, to be honest. It was that
intense?
That intense on a regular. Time in Malibu, it's like the men seem to age, but the girls don't. It's really a weird vibe where you're literally like 14 years old hanging out with like, you know, 30-year-olds.
Yeah.
And I don't really know why that is. I think a lot of the women kind of grow up and move out and get jobs, and, you know, a lot of the guys just love Malibu and stay on the beach and surf.
Yeah, there you go.
And that just wasn't my type. No. So, yeah, I didn't date much in Malibu, and I was just kind of ready to get the hell out of there. Yeah.
Yeah, right? You're like, okay, and I'm out.
Yeah, and I'm out.
Yeah.
Second I could get out of there, I got out of there. I actually dropped out of high school.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, and just kind of woke up one morning and was like, nope.
This isn't for me. Yeah, I remember just feeling very like, well, you know, just kind of not good enough. I didn't really fit in, you know. I didn't have everything that everybody else had. Yeah, I was always kind of just like the odd man out. And I just remember thinking, I want to get out of here and just kind of start my own life and not be compared to everybody around me all the time. Yeah.
It's interesting because I only did high school for 2.5 years. I couldn't sit.
No, me too. Yeah. I think I did 9th grade, and then I did 2 weeks of 10th grade, and that was it. Oh my God. Yeah.
Interesting.
So you did more than I did.
Okay. I just was so over it. I just didn't want to, I couldn't do it. And I think it's so interesting because we've been talking recently about the school systems and...
Yeah, for me it was about just wanting to experience the world. Like, I was just ready. I was ready at a very young age. You know, my mom passed away when I was 5, and I had to grow up very early. And, you know, I just knew that there was more to life than kind of being like, you know, like in a box with all these people that were kind of bullying me and judging me. I was like, this isn't for me. You know what I mean? It was just, I always felt like there was more out there to discover.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so let's talk about that too. I mean, growing up, you have 3 sisters.
3 sisters from my mom and dad, yes, that I ended up growing up with, yes. So I have a brother and sister from my dad's first marriage too, like a half brother and sister, yeah.
Big fam.
Huge, big Italian family.
Very Italian.
Yep.
So what was that like being raised, you know, by your dad? Because you lost your mom at age 5?
5, yeah.
Wow. So what was that like growing up?
You know, I'm not gonna lie, like, I love you, Dad, but it was really hard. You know, it was really hard. I just remember, you know, you block out a lot when you're a kid and you suffer like, you know, traumatic experiences. And I mean, the amount of years that I've blocked out that I'm slowly like even piecing back together now, it's a defense mechanism, right? Like you're alone a lot, you're scared a lot, you kind of just like block things out. And it wasn't my dad's fault, right? He had 4 little kids. His wife dies. He has 4 little girls, all 4, 5, 7, and 11, looking at him like, where's mommy? You know what I mean? And like, he also had a startup company, D'Amore's Pizza. So he's trying to pay the bills, build a restaurant, be an entrepreneur, and has these 4 little girls that are crying all the time, missing their mommy, and it was just a nightmare, really. It really was. It was awful. I just remember often feeling like just a lot of pain and yearning and just begging the universe for my mom. And yeah, just that never happening. And you know, when you're a kid, you kind of create stories, and I always thought my dad was hiding her in the attic, and you know, I just always had these weird dreams, and like just something wasn't right. I realized what that was later on in life, kind of came full circle. I just wasn't told the whole truth of how she died. So I think that's how I was kind of, when you're a kid, you kind of create other stories when you only have bits and pieces of the facts, you know? So that's why with my daughter, I try to be very honest at all times, even if it's a hard subject. I really like to tell her the truth, without, of course, scaring her or whatever, but parents don't give the children enough credit that they can understand things, and actually, it's better for them in the long run, you know? Like, even now, me going through a divorce, like, I have to sit her down and have these hard conversations with her and just let her, you know, in on the truth, because she's going to do better having that information.
Yeah, well, and also I feel like...
Sorry, I just went down a full rabbit hole there.
No, love it. Let's go down that hole.
All right.
So when, I mean, being 5 years old, and then finding the truth out later.
Yeah.
I mean, because when you're 5, it's also, there's a lot of things that happen in this world that you don't even know what that even means yet.
Right.
So how much, I mean, how old
But
were
also
you?
because nobody tells you, and then you get little spotted bits of information, you know? And I saw my mom lying there in an open casket, and that's very traumatic for a 5-year-old. Yeah, you know?
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like the Catholic way, you know what I mean? And I'll never get the image out of my head. It used to haunt me as a child. I remember her fingernails, you know, her skin, the tone, the makeup that wasn't very her. Like, it was just, there's so many things that, that I ended up just kind of needing to get through and like sort out on my own, all alone, you know? So,
wow.
Yeah. I think that made me very independent, though.
Yes, right? Yeah. I mean, one tough cookie, girl.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, especially for somebody who wanted to go out on their own so young.
Yeah.
I mean, so let's go back to that, right?
Yeah.
So you're like, high school, peace, bye, get me out of Malibu.
Yeah.
So what was your next journey like that you decided to do?
So I decided. So my mom was a flight attendant, and when she passed away, she was a flight attendant. So they granted the family free flights until you either turn 18 or your dad gets remarried, which he didn't do. And so I knew that, and I knew that I could show up at the airport and get on a flight and not really have to tell my dad, not really have to do any of that. And so I kind of organized it. I called one of my older sister's friends, and I said, hey, can I stay on your couch and figure this out? And she was like, cool. And I knew that I was going to be able to like figure something out. So I got to New York. I started meeting with modeling agencies. I got an agent. I was like, all right, cool. Am I going to be able to pay for, you know, an apartment, rent? You know, they helped me out with that. And sure enough, you know, I started modeling, and I was making a ton of money, and I was doing, you know, everything on my own, but I was so young. Living in New York City by yourself it's just an even worse place than Malibu. So, you know, it was just like surviving the darkness, you know, like having a lot of positive awesomeness, but then also just being like, wow, this industry is shit. It was very scary, you know. I had some really scary run-ins, and I just don't think, you know, my daughter will ever be allowed to do anything ever. So
she is in the bubble.
She is in the bubble. She is in my bubble forever.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
No, but you know, it's so interesting too. did you know when you went to New York about just how to go get an agent? Like, was it all automatic? Or?
No, I was at a sushi restaurant, and an agent came up to me and was like, hey, do you have any interest? And I was like, can I make enough money to get an apartment, pay my bills? And they're like, probably, you know? And I was like, great. So yeah, I ended up just, everything I've ever done in my life, like all my careers, I've just started. And that's my biggest bit of advice to people. They're always like, well, you have to plan for a year and do this business plan and figure this out. You really don't. Like, you really just have to do the first step and then see where that takes you and then work that out and then get to the next step. And that's how I've done everything in my life.
I love that. I respect that. I relate to that too.
Yeah.
You know, it's sometimes I sit with people and they're like, oh, so where did you go to college? I was like, I barely did high school. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, and you know, I started my business on $26 Squarespace.
Have you ever felt like less than or ever regretted the high school thing? It only started happening to me recently, and I'll tell you about it. But
wait, tell me why. I'm really intrigued by that. I'm really intrigued.
Well, I'm now being in business and being a CEO is the first time I've really felt it's the first time I've ever had to feel the lack of education when I'm sitting in a room with, you know, and I'm competing against Harvard graduate, you know, my friend from Cornell, my friend from, you know, like all these people who really went to business school and really just, you know, they use giant words.
No, wait, that's so, I'm like, I really wish I had someone like an intercom. I was just in a so I'm in a boardroom the other day too, and my partner is actually like a tech founder, right? And so it's one of those things where you built this incredible empire, you've had multiple careers, so successful, and it's like, you genuinely know you're great at what you do.
Right.
But then that imposter syndrome, because when you're surrounded by these people speaking about things, and you're like, yeah, but I know how to be creative and brand it and like sell this shit out of it. Go. Yeah. And like, but then you're sitting there and they're speaking about things. I'm like, can I get a dictionary? Like, can you no, and that is, I do. So I've recently felt the same way where it wasn't this big regret. I just wish I wish I knew more. Like, I wish I came into this being like a little bit more the educational business side.
Yeah.
You know?
Or at least like, I feel like the school system is messed up where if it was something that I was actually like interested in or something that I felt would really like, I would benefit from in some, you know, like, I don't know. I feel like once your child has an interest, maybe like nurture the interests rather than, because then maybe they'll really study in their field or in their field of interest. I don't know. It's a complicated one for me, especially now being a mother. You know?
Yeah. So, okay, speaking on to that, right? So we know each other through Janelle, who's amazing, who I'm also going to be interviewing.
Yes.
And
talented woman.
Amazing. Inside and out, incredible soul.
Yeah.
So let's chat about, because for Pizza Girl, right?
Yeah.
So I want to talk about the background, but leading into that, about your creative vision.
Yeah.
How that shifts everything too. So let's talk about how you got into Pizza Girl and where that, you know, why Pizza Girl?
Where it came from. Okay. Yeah. So growing up with a single dad, you know, who is every night catering and every night at the restaurant, you know, oftentimes he'd have to pick us up and have to go to a gig, and we'd have to go with him. You know, we couldn't stay home. We were too young, so he just threw us in these really embarrassing shirts that said Pizza Kid and then Pizza Girl.
Yeah.
And I was, you know, on the set of 90210, and I'm like serving, you know, pasta to Jason Priestley, and I'm mortified, and I'm just like, this is not how I envisioned this going. And I just, you know, the Pizza Girl name stuck. And it was like people, like I said, like in high school, like Brody and all these people like that, they would all call me the Pizza Girl. Like when I would show up at a party, it was like, hey, Pizza Girl, where's the pizza at? You know, like and sometimes I would bring pizza, you know, and I used to feel so cool. I would like call the restaurant and be like, I need 20 pizzas to Paris Hilton's house right now. And they'd come. And that was like my cool factor, right?
Yep.
But then people started hearing me do that, and they started doing it and pretending they were me, and they'd call the pizza store, pretend they were me, and I realized like what a brat I was being. Like, and I was like, ooh, that's really not me. I'm just surrounded by people who behave that way, and I don't want to behave that way, you know? So I quickly, like, reeled that in, apologized to my dad, and I was like, thank you for the pizzas, you know?
Yeah. Had that moment.
Yeah, so I just grew up in the world, you know. My first job was delivering pizzas and, you know, making pizzas. And, you know, not many people can flip pizza as good as I can, which is pretty funny. You know what I mean? That's why everybody on talk shows, they always make me do it because it's like, you wouldn't think it, you know? Right. It's kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, it was just something that was like obviously in my blood, you know? I know red sauce, I know pizzas, I know pasta. I was born into it, and I did everything I could to run from it my whole life. And nothing ever felt authentic. It was so weird. Like, I've had so many careers. I had my swimwear line, I had my modeling career, I had my DJ career, which was massive. I toured the whole world, you know?
But DJ Ski.
Right. I had a huge TV, radio show with him, syndicated in like 35 countries. And, you know, I did it, everything I did it with so much passion that it went somewhere, but it was never truly authentic Caroline. It was me trying to keep up literally with the Kardashians. You know what I mean? It was me trying to keep up with all my friends and trying to do the things that I thought were cool. And I was really good at a lot of them, which was great, but it was never my true calling. And I think that's where these things failed. I was like embarrassed to be the pizza girl for some reason, and now I'm like, why? You know, like, and I want to talk to all the little kids out there that are like, you know, embarrassed to be who they truly are, because that's your ticket. That's your golden truth. That's the thing that people are gonna really believe in down the road. Do you know what I mean? Like, once I started embracing being the pizza girl, it was like everything in my life came together.
Oh, yeah. I love that. I love that so much. Well, so it's so interesting because you have all these skill sets, you've had all these careers, and you know, we talk about this a lot, that just because you're incredible at something, it's not something that is what makes your heart sing, right? And like, passion is everything. And the same way of like, a lot of people, like you said, are so scared to start a business because they think they have to know everything. Right. And it's really that fear of failing is what holds so many people back. And that sounds, you're like head on, break through that. And then you do DJ, do music, you go to New York, but then it's always that something's missing, right? Yeah. And then Pizza Girl was like, but that is my soul. Like, you were trend forecasting your life when you didn't even know it, when you were like young, you know? Yeah. And so with that being said, when you started it, what was your first step in creating it? Like, was it just the ingredients, the sauce, your branding? I mean, how did you build this from scratch? Totally. So I started by going into my dad's restaurant, bringing in these little sauces that I would work on at home, and being like, and forcing the customers in his restaurant to try it, all the staff members to try it. My dad, you know, he's like the harshest critic. He's like thinking I'm insane to go and try to do this. You know what I mean? At that point, he was like, you're like this party girl DJ. Like, what are you even trying to do? You know, like, now you're trying to come into my business and this and that. So it was a hard, like, transition. Nobody took me seriously, not even my own family, which I don't blame them, because I was, you know, a super wild kind of party girl that was kind of hard. It was hard to take me seriously at that time, for sure. But I knew that the sauces on the aisle sucked. They were all, you know, very similar with this one kind of tomato pasty texture. They were tons of additives, weird aftertaste, and I just knew I could do better. There was nothing female-led. There was nothing current. There was nothing organic. It was all just very male-dominated. Rayo's, Newman's, Carbone. Like, it's all just this. And it's like, who's really buying the sauce anyway all day long? It's us millennial moms that are like in a crunch to cook something up for their kids, but also want it to be organic and healthy. And it's just so interesting to me that no founder has gone, you know, I'm going to go and tap into that. But then I find out everybody's like, you're nuts. You're not going to get shelf space. Like, that shelf space is dominated by these people with billions of dollars backing them, you know, and that shelf space is like harder to get than, it's the most expensive real estate in the world. Like, what makes you think you're going to get that shelf space? And like you said, blind, it's almost better sometimes to just be like, no, I got this. I'm just going to go for it. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. Yeah. So I got the recipes down, and then I Googled how to make a product. Literally. Mind-blowing. How to get your product in packaging
for supermarkets. You just start Googling. Like, it's all there at your fingertips. You know what I mean? So I did that, and then I found this company, and that's what they do. They take your idea, and they help you go from idea to prototype. And I paid them way too much money, and it all kind of sucked. But what happened with that was that I learned what I needed to do. So I then redid everything, and they did also get me with my very first co-packer. Wow. Which was very tiny mom and pop, ended up costing me way more money than I should have spent. Had I done some better research, that probably would have gone better, but then that got me to holding this jar of sauce in my hand. So now it's a real product. And I just way too early walked into Erewhon on Beverly. And I said, who do I have to talk to? I have this amazing sauce. It's the best sauce in the world. And you guys need to get up on this. And they were like, well, that's not really how you do this. You don't walk into Erewhon and think you're going to get, shelf space. And I was like, well, that's how I do this. So I was like, who do I got to talk to? Yeah. And luckily, Erewhon was so small at the time that the main office was right upstairs in the Beverly location. Oh my God. And I'll never forget her name, Vicky Osana. She was the head buyer. And I went up there and I sat in her office and I did not leave. I had no appointment. All these other people did. So I didn't leave until she finally saw me. And every time the door would open, I would just wave. And I think she thought I was a little insane and like I better just talk to her quickly or, who knows? Yeah. And she took a spoon out of her desk, took a bite, and on the spot gave me all 5 Erewhon locations.
Oh my God.
And I didn't have any product yet.
Wait. So you have this prototype, you bring it in, but you know that you don't have like the available product to actually like fill the shelves yet.
I even had like glued on labels at the time.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that looked like shit.
Ballsy.
Yeah,
I love it.
But she loved me and she loved the taste of the product. So that is really what it comes down to. First, you got to make sure your product is as good. It's more important than the branding. Some people think you can do a whole company just on branding, and sure, you'll get far, you'll get people to buy the first time, but you're not going to get the longevity, right? Yeah. So many companies have come and gone that we've seen that have the coolest packaging and all this money behind them, and then they're gone in a year. So the product was incredible. What I was standing for was incredible, and then also my story was something that she connected to. She knew I was, the pizza girl. She had had D'Amore's before. And it meant something. So then I was like, oh God, like now I have to make sauce for 5 supermarkets, At the time they only had 5. So I ran back to that factory. I had my hairnet on, and I was literally just jarring these jars all by myself. It was nuts. Yeah.
Okay, so that's incredible. So now you're jarring these jars. Yep. Okay, going back to Aaron, Vicky, your new homegirl, right?
Love her. Oh my God, I owe her so much. I tell her that all the time. I email her. I'm like, you're amazing.
But you know what? It's so interesting is that we talk about this all the time. Is that like your loyalty, the relationships, how you treat humans go so far, and it can change your life.
So far. Just
you being this personality and this bright son who's sitting and waiting, like that shows something to another person, and her be like willing to open up with the jar and eat it. And then here you are, game changer, right? Yeah. And that's like sometimes that difference between that entrepreneur personality and the person who's kind of hiding behind a computer like, yeah, but I can't go walk in there. But no, go own your product.
Own it.
Like be your authentic self.
Yep.
So now with that, so it sounds like the branding came second as opposed to the product, right?
The branding's still evolving, yeah. And I remember seeing the Starbucks logo, the very first Starbucks logo. And it made me feel so good because I realized like all these companies think that they need to start at the finish line. But I personally like to watch companies evolve over time, and it gives you that feeling that you were there when they started. You know what I mean? So yeah, my stuff looks a little more homemade, and to be honest, it was. And now it's evolving, and people get to go along for that ride with me, which is pretty cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
Yay.
I'm loving this ride.
Yay.
Okay, so is cooking then a really big passion for you too?
Listen, cooking was a necessity. Of course, I love eating more than anything. I love to eat. Food is everything. My grandmother was the best cook in the world. Red sauce just all the time. But cooking didn't really come into my life until I had a child of my own where I needed to cook constantly. And then when I took over my own restaurant and was running the restaurant, there were so many days that a chef didn't show up. And if I didn't know what was going on and how to do it and how to make it, we were done. We couldn't get the food to the customer. So Another reason why I got out of the restaurant business, it's not dependent on you. It's dependent on so many other factors. Someone shows up drunk on Super Bowl, your busiest day, and you're done, you know? So, yeah, I just watched my dad struggle in the restaurant business for so long that I was just like, there's got to be a better way.
Right, yeah, and then here you found the sauce, the secret sauce for your sauce.
Yeah, exactly, the secret sauce.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So with Pizza Girl, I mean, like, do you have a plan, or are you just watching it unfold as you're going, or?
So of course, like I do have like an ideal, dream, but I'm always open to the different, ebbs and flows that, I'm down for the ride. So, I started in the 5 Erewhon stores, and as of yesterday, I'm in almost 800 stores.
Oh my God, congratulations.
Thank you. Launching through the pandemic, which was also really gnarly and very scary. And everybody told me not to do that as well.
We don't listen to them.
Right? You just don't listen. You just go, you know? So it's growing very nicely, but I have to keep it slow because of cash flow funding, and I'm just being very smart about how and being very strategic. And I'm listening to, the people that I've surrounded myself with on how to do this without,
without
messing it up.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go into, though, also the lifestyle that you had that probably also set you up for success as, an entrepreneur. So music world.
Yeah.
So what was that? I mean, did you know you wanted to do music, or you're just over modeling, was like, I'm DJ for life?
Yeah, no, I had a really bad experience in the modeling world.
You want to share what happened?
Sure. I mean, listen, it was a hard pill for me to swallow, like verbally in the past, but I did share it on one other podcast when the documentary came out, and I was like, just in a little panic mode. But when you're a young kind of just girl on your own in New York and you're a model, people are like, oh, they come for you, right? So this girl came up to me at an audition or something, and she kind of befriended me, and then she knew I was struggling and I needed more work and jobs, and I thought I was going on a modeling audition, and I ended up at Jeffrey Epstein's house. Yeah. So, but I realized in that moment who I am in the face of like danger, and I am a fighter, and I scared the living shit out of him and got the fuck out of there. So it was awful, though. I mean, I never got it out of my head. I never knew who he was for years and years and years until the documentary came out. I had no idea. And then I remember telling my boyfriend about it, and then he had seen the documentary, and he goes, if you saw his face, because like everything was verbatim, like the way I described the house, where the house was, the pictures on the wall, like that he takes you up to this creepy massage table room, like everything was verbatim, and I had no idea. All that time, and I always remembered wishing I knew who it was, because I wanted to like report him or prevent anybody from it ever happening to again, and it ate me up for years. But then my boyfriend was like, would you recognize his face if you saw it? And I was like, in a heartbeat. And sure enough, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. And I just realized, like, in that world, it's just a dangerous world if you don't have your parent by your side, if you don't have a good agent, Like, I had agents taking me to dinners, and it was like 20 young girls and like a couple older dudes. And I was like, why? They know that we're hungry, we need to eat, so they take us to this fancy dinner, but now we're like subjected to these creepy old dudes.
You had to sell
I'm just like, why am I here? Like, I ended up in so many weird places in my childhood, just growing up all alone, that my heart goes out to any young female or male, trans, just anybody in general, who is alone in that stage of life when you don't know everything,
Well, and also you're so raw at that age that you think your agent's going to protect you. You think somebody that is older is the person that's going to be there for you.
Right.
And so, like, I mean, advice to the people who are trying to do it now, it's if something feels weird.
It is.
It's fucking weird.
Yeah, it's
Excuse
weird.
my mouth.
Yeah,
but
it's true. It's true.
And don't think you need to sell yourself short for something.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But so that crazy experience.
Yeah, it led me to not wanting anything to do with the modeling world,
Wow.
wanting me to do nothing with New York City. I remember I ran all the way home from the Upper East Side, where his building was, all the way down to like Tribeca, where I was staying, and I just never looked back. And I was like, get me the hell out of here. Went back to LA and just partied my ass off. And I was like, okay, I can't afford the same party lifestyle all my friends can. How can I obtain this party lifestyle and make money?
Yeah.
DJing, like, duh. And DJ AM was a really good friend of mine. And I just remember I would always get in there, and I would be the first person on the dance floor. And he was just like, he would laugh and like love it. And then, you know, I'd jump in the DJ booth, and I was just so like enamored by the way that he would make people just go crazy on the dance floor, you know? And I didn't care. I would dance by myself, you know what I mean? And I was just like, this is amazing. And then I, you know, and then I lied into my first job. I remember a director called me, and he was like, do you know any female DJs for this job at the El Rey Theater? And I was like, I'm a DJ. Never DJed a day in my life. And I got the job. And then like from that job, I got one of the biggest gigs in LA, which was like one of the most popular clubs at the time. I was DJing just twice a week. And it was paying for me to have my own apartment and all of that. At that age, you're like, this is amazing. And then I have like 5 days off and 2 nights of fun. And then I got signed to the biggest agency, Scam Artists, and there was only a few female DJs at the time. This was when girl DJs, it wasn't a cool thing, okay? Right. It was the opposite of cool. And if it was cool, you were Sam Ronson. And then I got good, right? I got good by being bad, right? I went to the club. I was DJing every night, and I had some really rough nights, some really bad crashes and burns where they call it sneakers in a dryer, where it literally sounds like sneakers in a dryer.
Oh my God. Oh my
you're
God,
dancing.
I cannot not hear that.
Right, so I ended up getting really good out of embarrassment, you know?
Love that, yeah.
I was like, I never want to feel that way again.
Right.
And then I like went to work, and like now I'm a really good, like I can mix, and it's just something that I loved doing. But then the partying and the drugs just really got in the way of being very, very like at the top of my game. That's
incredible. So you go from DJ and you're in LA at this time, and then your next step. Well, let's talk about the fact too. I mean, the Hills recently. The Hills. Yeah. The rebirth of the Hills. Yeah. Which all makes sense with your entire LA life that was happening.
The rebirth and then the demise of the Hills. Yeah, they're rebirthing that again because it was so bad. But they, listen, I was going through a divorce. I had nothing. I was sleeping on a friend's couch at the time, about to lose time with my daughter because I didn't have a roof over my head. And the Hills called. You know, like divorce really can take you down as a female. I'm sure as a male too, I don't know. But I just know a lot of females who ended up in a rough way after divorce. And I was definitely one of them. And you know, what happens to a woman is like you feel so beat up, you don't want to fight anymore. And you don't really know what you're doing. And you just kind of say yes because you're so overwhelmed by emotions. You know, I lost my restaurant on 3rd Street. I got no alimony, no child support, nothing. And I was cut off from any funds that were coming in from the restaurant. So I just had to start over from zero.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. God.
Yeah.
Fun. That's, yeah.
Yeah,
Jesus
it was
Christ.
a nightmare.
Yeah.
But then the Hills called. And I was like, well, you know, this is not something I was planning on. But this is great because now I can go on this TV show and hopefully promote my business. Yeah. So Pizza Girl came before the Hills. But I also that got held up in the divorce. I had to fight to get that back. Nightmare, yeah. So once I got my life kind of more sorted out, and then I was on the Hills, it was really like a business move to A, survive, and B, you know, really put Pizza Girl on the map.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, an amazing way to get impressions and views of your new product and your new life.
And it absolutely was. I mean, even just yesterday, I'm doing a demo at which one was I at? Oh, at Bristol Farms. And literally two adorable people came in, and they knew the product from the hills. They knew me from the hills, and we talked about the hills for like 20 minutes. So I'm definitely grateful that they chose me out of thousands of people to be the new girl. And, you know, it was a really weird way to end up on the show, because technically I just replaced Misha Barton. And she didn't believe it was happening, and she posted all this really mean stuff about me. And then Us Weekly and all these magazines picked it up. And I couldn't say anything because technically they hadn't released the news that it was real. And she's posting like, well, no one would want to, I think she said, no one would want to ever watch you hawk your greasy pasta bowls.
Oh my God.
I know. You can find it on the internet. It's all over the place.
Fun.
Yeah.
What a great industry.
Yeah, what an awesome girl.
Yeah.
But no, so she says all that, but then I like had to be quiet about the fact that I really am replacing you, and it's because you're not nice. You know, like the producers called me and they were like, she was actually like, so I had done this big event for Kathy Hilton's house for the Hills, for Pizza Girl, for them all to come. That was the first season that Misha was on.
Okay.
And I guess in the room, Misha wouldn't speak my name so that I wouldn't have the airtime. Yeah, and the producers called me and told me that. And I was like, that's so mean. Like, I worked my ass off to make this happen for everybody. That's lame. And then they were like, but good news. We're going to replace her with you.
Amazing.
And I was like, oh my God, Karma really is a bitch. And I was like, is this really happening? And I was like, okay. And it was very just scary, and, you know, all the news breaking, and just me, like, just feeling awkward and uncomfortable. And yeah, the Hills is definitely not I just kept saying to the producers, I was like, why am I here? Like, I'm so, like, I just don't fit in, you know?
Well, and also, but it's like you said, it's like you're coming off of this divorce. It's like a cloud of emotions that you're just living in, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not even like you're in your own body. It's just, you're just taking the one foot in front of another, you know?
Trying to survive, literally.
But it's so interesting because it's like, to me, I feel that cattiness and that girl play and like the drama and the feuds, it's so old. Like, are we not, like, right now, isn't it?
But that cast is so old.
That's
And
true, too.
that ended up being why the show got canceled. And if you ask producers, they literally told me verbatim. They also do The Housewives, and they told me that this cast, minus me, was the worst cast they have ever dealt with. They are 10 times worse and snobbier and more self-centered and just, what's the word? Just like about themselves. Egotistical than the Housewives, than anybody that they've ever worked with. And at the end of the day, the ratings were fine, but the network was like, we just don't want to do this anymore. Like, they are, you know?
Yeah, why? Like, I mean, who you are in this industry, it goes a long way.
It does,
you know?
and it's a shame because there's people like me who really needed it, you know?
I
was like, I actually really need this. I'm like not getting paid $50 grand an episode like you guys, and I could really use another season or two to get my company off the ground. Thanks.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So it's so great because I love so much about this. It's just been kind of like, just say fuck it and do it, you know?
Oh yeah, that's been my whole life.
So I mean, if you were to give, you know, and also I think being an entrepreneur and a business owner, some of the things that you have to do is sometimes you make mistakes by spending too much money.
Right.
Sometimes you make those mistakes, like, I mean, I always say that if you aren't in a lawsuit, then you haven't had a business yet. Like, you know?
Oh yeah.
So I mean, what's one of the biggest lessons I feel that you've learned in your entire life and career?
You know, you just can't be fearful of what the outcome. It's do it and deal with it. You know, do it and figure out how. You just can't be fearful because that'll hold you back. And I've seen so many people be like, well, I have to really think about this and plan. And listen, it's good to think about things, but then you also need to execute, right? So just really be passionate about what you're doing. If it's authentically you, if it comes from a good place and you really want to solve a problem in an industry, you really, you know, it solved an issue for you. Like for me, it was a healthy organic pasta sauce that actually tasted good, you know, that tastes like homemade, that doesn't give you that weird aftertaste. Like I was set out to solve an issue in the industry, and I would say, look within you to figure out like what that is and what's authentically you, and don't try to be anybody else. Don't, you know, just really think about what's you. And I just think, you know, with social media right now, everybody's like competing with each other, and they're all, and it's like these girls like that are just like that whole like Misha thing where they're just, I want to support women, and that's my goal. Like when Pizza Girl, you know, when I'm talking about how Pizza Girl really made it, and I'm, you know, at that place, all I'm going to do is help other women that were in my position. And I really hope that more entrepreneurs actually do that, because I'm noticing that there's a lot of people who have made it, or who are, you know, who have really like done it, and they're just talking about how, you know, on the internet, they're just talking about how you really got to like go for it and this and that and that, but are they really now using their time to help others? And that's the thing that I just feel, you know, needs to happen more.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was talking with another female who, she's actually creating a mentorship program. She's a jewelry owner, credible company.
Yeah.
But she wants to be able to share what she's done.
Yeah.
She's like, I want to give back. I'm not worried about competing in my space with somebody else. I want to be able to
like
help
always
somebody.
having to be on top, and always having to, yeah, no, I think it's really important just to have it be truly authentic, and to really like find your, you know, you do have to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you can put it on others. And I'm, you know, still in that position today, but I can't wait to go out there and find other like food entrepreneurs in my position that have a great product, and that I'm just gonna, you know, give them the help that they need. So that will be like the future down the road.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, they're wrapping us up.
Great.
But I think that's the best way to end
Woo!
on this note. What an incredible interview. I can't thank you enough. This was such a great time.
Yeah.
So thank you for everything and your wisdom and your guidance. And
thank you for
that.
having me. Yay.
Real girl talk on Real Talk. So.
Seriously.
All right, and that's the cut.
All right.